And good evening. Thank you for choosing Graps TV and the Sicko Show. I'm your host, the Matty Man. How's everybody's evening going? It's a Monday night. We just had WWE Raw. It wasn't raw like sushi. No, it wasn't raw like sushi at all. It was just regular old Raw. For those of you wondering, yeah, this was not live. This was taped, even though I threw that in there, just sort of to let you know what the show was all about. We are currently in the western North Carolina mountains, and Raw was pre-taped. So guess what? We got the advantage to see the spoilers. We went ahead and did the show. And we're live up in the western North Carolina mountains right now. We are helping with recovery from Helene. We are doing lots of things to help up here. And I got to tell you, it hadn't gotten any better from the last time you heard from me on that. In fact, it's probably not going to get better for a little while, but that's okay. That's okay. We are recovering. We are North Carolina strong. And we are showing you right now that you don't need the government. All you need is a few friends, a truck, a dolly, and you can fix your problems. And you're saying, wow, you're way too joyful about this. No, because there's just no other way to do it, because otherwise you wind up just being depressed about the whole thing, and I refuse to do that. But then again, we sat down and watched WWE Monday Night Raw. Not even going to get into it right now. I'm just going to give you the results. We're going to give you everything. I did get to see some clips from Monday Night Raw. I have actually seen the show at this point. And I'm ready to give you my highlights, my thoughts, my predictions on where everything's going. I understand that Bully Ray would have liked to have seen something better out of last week's Raw. Wow. See, I look at that kind of like I look at Catholicism. Once there are solid Catholics show up for mass as many times as the doors open, do their confessional, the rosary, and the whole 9 yards. Then you got that one guy that shows up after 6 months and wants to get the entire confessional all out at once. That would be this guy. That would be Bully Ray. He said he would like to see more out of Raw. I would like to see a lot more out of Raw. I would like to see convincing booking. I would like to see chain wrestling. I would like to see all kinds of cool things out of Monday Night Raw. I know everybody's capable of doing it. At least everybody that they've got on the roster right now and on television on a regular basis, especially for SmackDown. That's just a fact. I mean, my God, guys, you got people that can chain wrestle. You got people that can do all kinds of stuff. Let them do it. That's what I want to see out of Monday Night Raw. We used to get it, but they called it attitude, and you got attitude, and we got attitude. During the Attitude Era, we did have a lot of that. It wasn't as prevalent as it is with the other promotions out there, but we had it. And the wrestlers enjoyed everything they were doing. You could tell they were having fun. You could also tell when they weren't having fun because things weren't going the way they should have gone. And not to be left out, plenty of people here. I've been looking through the fallout from Jimmy Jacobs' departure, and I do have a red light from hell. This is from Twitter, of all places. And this is WWE WWF Junkie. Oh boy, this is a good one. Okay, let's make a list of what's to blame for AEW's rapid decline. Is it serial killers running loose, cloud seeding by Paul Levesque, or Jimmy Jacobs? Just keep them coming, Muppets. You never cease to amaze me. That is by far and away the most god-awful faithless account that I've ever seen. Okay, you want me to give you a rundown on what's responsible for AEW's declining viewership? Okay. And what's responsible for what's going on with AEW at their house shows and everything else, which basically they don't do house shows in the first place, dumbass. But what they do is they do their recordings and they do their shows live at the particular event that they're at. Let me explain to you what happens with attendance. For those of you who are unaware, AEW is only a 5-year-old product. And I say only a 5-year-old product because they are only a 5-year-old product. Wrestling in general is enjoyed by roughly between the Ninja Watchers, the Shadow Watchers, and the people who are actually connected to cable TV. I'm going to give it an entire population just based on what I can see, pay-per-view buys, things of that nature. So I'm giving you full credit, full understanding of how I come to this number. There's a roughly, in the United States of America, roughly 5 million wrestling fans. Give or take. Total. It's what we're working with right now. Because a lot of your traditional wrestling fans, the ones that were around for the Attitude Era, and whether you guys like it or don't like it, both products have taken a significant hit because WWE could not only compete with Monday Night Football, they competed with the Washington Redskins, when it was the Redskins, and the Dallas Cowboys. They competed with that game on Monday Night Football, live and in living color, with 10 million people watching. I was one of those 10 million. I remember those days. So basically, WWE has gone from an average show of between 6 and 10 million to an average show of between 1.5 to 2 million. In a very short amount of time, actually, when you look at it, because it's well less than 8 years. So in 8 years, you've gone from being the premier, only, of course, it's a monopoly at that time. So you go from being the only guy on TV drawing 6, let's be realistic here, 6 to 10 million. The big ones were usually go-home shows or shows after pay-per-views because the pay-per-views actually used to cost $50 to $75, and they used to have 10 matches, and they used to do all this stuff. Now it's just passé, I guess. I don't know. But in that time, it was not uncommon to get a 6 million. It was not uncommon to get an 8 million. It was not uncommon to get a 10 million. So, going from 1.2 million to 700,000 over a course of 5 years, and going from 6 to 10 million down to 1.5 to 2 million, I'll let you make the determination as to who's fallen off farther, faster, and worse. Because that's really what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. And to be honest with you, it's not even about that. I watch AEW wrestling because it reminds me of WCCW. It reminds me of old school NWA wrestling. Stuff that I watched. Somebody called me out the other day on Facebook, which I've renamed Time Suck. And they're like, oh, well, obviously you've just never seen wrestling if you don't understand that WWE is old school wrestling. I'm like, dude, seriously, I was watching AWA, WCCW, NWA. I have forgotten more about what is old school wrestling than a lot of people and a majority of the people doing podcasts. I have forgotten more about professional wrestling than they've ever seen, and most of them know. Because it was a pastime. It was a pastime for me and my father. Me and my dad watched wrestling. That was our fishing time a lot of times. Because we worked. We worked hard. We did heat and air conditioning installs. And there would be weeks where we wouldn't get home before 8 o'clock on a regular basis, and that was all. That was it. We're exhausted, so we're going to sit there and watch Raw, get a shower, go to bed. You know? That was the thing. So I've been watching this stuff for it pains me to say this because it's a reality. I've been watching professional wrestling for 51 years. 51. That's why your revisionist history bullshit doesn't work on me, because I saw it live. I saw it live and in living color. So you know what's probably responsible for the demise of Jimmy Jacobs, you stupid dumbass? The demise of Jimmy Jacobs, they listed a lot of reasons. The main reason, the only reason, because I can assure you that there is a very small, incredibly small pocket of people that care about Daniel Garcia. There is a great deal of interest in Konosuke Takeshita. And the fact that Takeshita should have gone over in the TNT ladder match and was not permitted to go over. See, I misread that. This is where I take accountability for my own mistakes. My theory as to why Takeshita did not win the TNT title was because he was going to the G1. And because of the style and the format of the G1, there was a great deal of potential for him to get very seriously injured or hurt and not be able to defend the TNT title. In addition, the G1 was going hand in hand with two of Tony's pay-per-views. So my thought was that they didn't put the title on Takeshita because of that, and that his push would come when he came back. And his push did come when he came back, So in essence, it looked like I had called it correctly. I had not. And I would have fired Jimmy Jacobs over this to begin with, because the entire world wanted to see a Takeshita run. The entire wrestling world was getting excited to see a Takeshita run. Takeshita's being booked at Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling for their first inaugural pay-per-view. He's a hot item, hot commodity. So my guess now, and it would be a guess because I'm not in the room, I'm just getting everything secondhand just like everybody else gets it. Regardless of how they report it, it's secondhand. And I'm getting the same information secondhand. So now my updated theory, because I was wrong about my first one, is that Jimmy Jacobs just didn't want to book him. Later on, reading down there, Jimmy Jacobs didn't even know who Okada was, much less. So we're sitting here going, why are they not booking Okada correctly? So Jimmy Jacobs is responsible for Okada, Takeshita, Daniel Garcia. Everything, every complaint that I have seen on the boards, all the way across the board, on Twitter, on Facebook, have been what's going on with creative. Okay, so Tony Gubson lets him go. Seems like a solid thing to do. We're all sitting here going, what's going on with creative? Turns out Jimmy Jacobs was responsible for the creative that we're sitting there bitching about. He lets him go. That's what a businessman does. You say, why are you talking about AEW on a WWE stream? Because it came up. That's why. So, Tony Khan immediately lets Jimmy Jacobs go after the TV deal, which, if all of this was going on the way it's going, solid move. We should be going, good move, Tony, good move. If that's what's responsible for it, that's my take on it. But you drones need to pick a struggle, son. I'm telling you, you really seriously need to pick a struggle. None of you are making any sense anymore. It is what it is, and that is the only negative thing I'm going to say right now, because it needs to be said. Oh, let's come up with a laundry list of excuses about. No, if the guy doing creative is not doing creative, that's not an excuse. That's an observable fact. If you're not salting the fries right and they fire you from McDonald's, you are, that's what you do. You do your job correctly or you don't do it at all. It's pretty simple, guys. It's really simple. It's not that deep. But what is that deep is you need to pick a struggle. Oh, they're creative is back. Okay, we fire creative. Oh, so that's the 5 minutes ago. You're bitching about creative. He gets rid of the guy, and now you're bitching that, oh, well, now he's going to blame it on Jimmy Jacobs, even though I was complaining about creative in every single one of my fucking podcasts. Now it's Jimmy Jacobs' fault. Well, that's what you were saying. This is what I mean when I say pick a struggle. Pick something to stand on, and for once in your miserable lives, actually stand on it. For once, JD, for once, Bully, for once, Eric, for once, the rest of you janky ass podcasters out there sucking on the teat of WWE. Pick a fucking struggle. Make it work. Make it make sense. Or shut the hell up. Period. We're done with all of you. You're getting exposed. And that's all I have to say on that. It really is. That's all I have to say on that because I refuse to let anything steal my joy. Wrestle Dream was a dream. If you want to see how a pay-per-view is done correctly, look up AEW. It's coming to Max. You got no excuse. And they're going to keep the same format. You have no excuse whatsoever. A lot of you probably already have Max. When it hits Max in January, treat yourself to some real professional wrestling. And by real, I mean a good, long show with years of build. Every single one of Tony's pay-per-views, on average, the minimum build is 2 years. The minimum build. And they tell stories. They tell them in the ring. And that's all I got to say on that. Because WWE was raw, and we're not talking about the good sushi raw. They were raw this week. On their way to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for, what is it, Crown Jewel, I think it is, Crown Jewel, where they copied the Owen Hart tournament and created a belt for Crown Jewel. So now the Saudis have their own belt. Where's the outrage? Where is it? It's another title. You remember when everybody says, oh, Tony Khan's got way too many titles. He's got way too much stuff going on. You remember that. It was just last week. Now WWE has a title for one show a year. Maybe the Owen Hart was a good idea. Maybe, just maybe, Tony Khan knows what he's doing. And you know how you know what he's doing? Because we have the Riyadh Green Lantern, ugly ass, big like the AEW title, but doesn't look nearly as prestigious. Riyadh Championship. Congratulations. You failed in 9 genres. And you did it with blood money. I don't care how that sounds. I don't care. I don't particularly care for Crown Jewel because I don't like the way the women are presented. I never saw the point of having a pay-per-view or premium live event, please, in a country that does not respect your ideals and what you're trying to do with your show. I never saw the logistics of it, except for the fact that they get paid a big bag to go over there by some of the royalty. So, in essence, all of this is blood money belts. Doesn't matter how you cook it. I probably will watch parts of Crown Jewel maybe the week after if I'm so interested. I'm not really that interested in this show, and it's not because I'm fake about it. I really believe what I say. If you can't present your entire division, your entire promotion, the same way you present it everywhere else, you don't need to go there. Now, there's plenty of people going, oh, yeah, Crown Jewel, new belt, new belt. You still don't need to be there. You don't. And I'm not saying that from a position of left leaning or anything like that. The women have busted their ass. Now, if this was like back in the day when we had the bra and panty matches and all of that stuff, I could understand not really giving a happy about the presentation of the women because they didn't give a happy about it during the show. Why would they give a happy about it on a plea or a pay-per-view? But the women in the WWE have advanced. They have become, in the eyes of most WWE fans, must-see television. So why in the world would you go to a country where every dude on the planet can walk around in their tighty-whities, but women have to be completely covered up? I'm surprised. It's like I told a friend of mine just the other day. I'm surprised they're not wrestling in burqas. I mean, hell, don't just stop there. Go all the way, guys. But suffice it to say, I'm just not that interested in the pay-per-view. I will watch parts of it. I will not be reviewing it. I do not care to review it because I wholeheartedly disagree with the entire premise behind it. I think it's a waste of airtime. I think it's an embarrassment to the talent. I definitely believe it's a shame on women. I will probably not be watching it. I probably don't care. I haven't even renewed my subscription yet, to give you an idea. I seriously am that serious about why I'm not watching that show and why I'm not building to it. Because to me, it is an uncomfortable thing to watch. And when we did the show in Riyadh the last time, I did a review on it. I did not comment one time on any botch any woman had in any match during that. Because I know that when you're not accustomed to wrestling in full clothing, just because your genitals happen to be different, that you're going to make mistakes. And I'm expecting mistakes out of them here. I'm expecting a few botches. And I'm not saying that to say, ha, 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 ha. No, I'm saying that to make my point. My point is really simple. You cannot treat your talent differently just for the bag. Because if you treat your talent different for that bag, you'll treat them different for another bag. And that's a fact. That's not a complaint. That's not a gripe. That's not a grip. That is an actual solid fact. So to be honest with you, I'm just not that interested in it. The red light previous right there just continues to make my case about the hatred, the unnecessary hatred for AEW. Beyond that, in the middle of all this, Raw actually managed to cut a pretty decent show. And I'm not going to be as hard on it as other podcasts are. I don't intend to be. And I'm not going to be an echo chamber to make you guys happy. The reality is, it is what it is. It was a better show than last week. I'm not terribly impressed with WWE creative. I think they're phoning it in at this point because they know they're going to Netflix. The deal is done. They're not that worried about it. They're putting a lot of effort into SmackDown. It's coming up a little short for me on a regular basis, but they can't help that. They're just SmackDown. But Raw really was a pretty decent show this week, so let's get into it and let's go through the highlights and let's see what we've got here. Let's see here. The match card. Rhea Ripley calls out Raquel Rodriguez. We've got a women's tag team match coming up. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Damage Control. We're going to have the Alpha Academy versus War Raiders. We're going to have a face-off between Cody Rhodes and Gunther. Braun Breaker versus Kofi Kingston for whatever reason. R-Truth versus The Miz for whatever reason. Then we're going to have a big tag team match at the end of it with Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. So let's get into the show. Rhea Ripley called out Raquel Rodriguez, and Tiffany Stratton showed up to confront Rhea to deliver a message from Nia Jax. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez could interfere with them to kickstart a brawl. And, that's where we get our tag team match later on. We got the women's tag team championship match, Bianca Belair versus Jade Cargill versus Damage Control. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill defending their titles against Damage Control, etc., etc., etc. It was just, crazy. That's the best way I could put it. They defended their WWE Championship against Io Sky and Kairi Sane of Damage Control. Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend from NXT appeared on the show, which distracted Damage Control and helped Bianca Belair, for whatever reason, pin Sky. Io Sky is eating more pins in 2024. I think she's got to be up there with Shinsuke at this point. She's got to be in that 139 schedule. She's got to be in that 139 schedule. Then we had the War Raiders versus Alpha Academy. Eric and Ivar made their return in their NXT name, War Raiders. They had their in-ring return against Otis and Akira Tozawa of Alpha Academy in a tag team match. The War Raiders, this was pretty much not even a call. It was a quick match, the whole 9 yards. Got them back out there, got them back out in front of everybody. We've been missing them. As much as I am a fan of AEW, I am also a fan of certain people in WWE. The War Raiders are definitely tops on my list. Love them to death. Glad to see them back. I'm not really sure there's a place anymore for Akira Tozawa, and it's really starting to show. I mean, Rey Mysterio is small, but he's strong. Akira is small and not very strong. So it's becoming obvious at this point that there's very little creatively to do with him, and we're going to wind up with more matches like this. But that's neither here nor there. War Raiders win. The Miz versus R-Truth in a great big nothing burger. This was just a setup, and I saw this coming a mile away. And Karrion Kross, Final Testament, I'm glad to see them being used more on television. I would like to see them in regular weekly episodic segments, either on Raw or SmackDown, because I find it very difficult to take a good wrestler and some MMA guys and bury them. I just don't see the point of it. Kross and AOP distracted R-Truth for Miz to pick up the win. At the end of the match, Miz beat the crap out of R-Truth again. And, obviously we've got heel Miz. Was anybody really buying face Miz that much? Miz, I think, is a victim of creative. They have creatively booked him as a heel for so long. It's very difficult to get into the Miz being a face. Glad to see him getting back to being a heel. And I think we all know how R-Truth caught that beatdown. So I guess that's WWE's way of saying, Stay off Instagram in your bedroom, son. Please. For those of y'all who didn't see that, I saw like 2 seconds of it and turned it off. I was like, wow, oops, we're going to hear about this. Sure enough, titles come off. And now R-Truth has gone back to being the wandering minstrel that he's going to be probably for the rest of his career. It's very disappointing. I would have liked to have seen R-Truth in bigger championship matches. I think he could have carried. But I think we're going back to minstrel R-Truth. And as much as I like R-Truth, I don't like him in that position. I'm not sure that The Miz is the right fit for the Final Testament, but at least it will put eyes on the Final Testament, so I get it. From a creative standpoint, I don't necessarily agree with it. I think it's a great big nothing burger to most of the fans because WWE just never really has invested in my theory. To my way of thinking, WWE has never really invested in Karrion Kross like they've invested in other performers. And I think the AOP is just something they bring back because they're big, mean, and nasty, and they make somebody look good when they lose. Following that, we had Braun Breaker versus Kofi Kingston for no apparent reason. Braun Breaker goes over with his regular spear, running 24, 23, or however many miles an hour we talk about here. Then we had, for pretty much no reason whatsoever, because I just don't think you could build the matches up any better than they're already built, and this is just crutching it over the finish line. Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton versus Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez. I'm still kind of in a way of this made no sense to anyone who actually pays attention. First off, Tiffany Stratton's on the wrong brand, the whole 9 yards. And why in the world would she be teaming with Rhea Ripley? It makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense to a certain degree, but this was a really big reach. Rhea Ripley teamed up with Tiffany Stratton and squared off against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez in a tag team match. The match ended in a no contest. After the match, Jax attacked Liv Morgan to help and tried to help Tiffany cash in on her. However, Dominic Mysterio pulled Liv out the ring, and we moved on to the next thing. And we had the Gunther and Cody Rhodes stare down, the face-to-face. Apparently, they weren't worth a tag team match to get you going. Only the women were. So here we are. And I really honestly think the reason they pre-taped this is because if they'd had to shoot it in Saudi Arabia, this just would not have had the same appeal as they would have had. Once again, my earlier rant on the women's matches stand. I believe that. I believe wholeheartedly. From that standpoint, I believe it. But Gunther and Cody Rhodes, they had a face-off, and that was a great big nothing burger as well. They just stared off, etc., etc., etc. And there we are. There we have it. This week's Raw segment. Be sure to tune into The Covalent TV for their live weekly segment on Monday Night Raw, where they will be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly. There won't be much good. There'll be a lot of bad, and there'll be even more ugly. I promise you. I would almost give this show a 1 because it actually had a little bit more action in it than last week's Raw. Now, I do agree with Bully on that. The shows could be better, but for a different reason, not the same reason he's coming up with. So here we are with that as well. So with that, just want you to know we're still up in the mountains. We're still looking around. The devastation is still there. If you feel the urge, please contribute, because the people there really need it. I'm not kidding in my review when I said that there are literally miles of people's lives strewn out all over the street. You can literally see all of their stuff out in the road, on the street. And people are looting it on top of that. That means coming to a thrift store near you, somebody's stuff that got stolen during a hurricane. These folks could really use your help. And I would consider it, I would consider you a hero, to be honest with you. So help out the people you can help out, please. And thank you. And with that, that ends this very short review of Monday Night Raw. I'm not going to be doing long reviews of WWE product at all, period. I'm doing short reviews because that's what I have to do to keep myself in check. And plus, like I said, I don't want to come off as a hater. I want to talk about the shows, but I want us to have respectful dialogue. Because the shows are not that good. They're really not. And if you sat there and thought about it, the things that you complain about with other promotions are actually happening right in front of your face, and you're cool with it because that's your promotion. Guess what? Everybody else is cool with it in their promotion because that's their promotion. Regardless, though, it wasn't a bad show overall. Like I said, I wanted to give it a 1. I didn't have a whole lot of interest in it. I know why they shot it in that way so they wouldn't have to make, so for once the women could actually wrestle on Monday. The women's on Friday. I'm feeling sorry for y'all. I really am. I wish it were better, but it's not going to be. And that's that. So here we are with that. And with that, I know I said with that probably like 9,000 times. Sorry about that. But I'm going to go ahead and let you go early because we got other shows on. We got Monday Night Football. We're not going to fight with that. We've got 2 games going on. Not going to fight with that either. But I want you guys to have a good evening. Enjoy what you enjoy. And let everybody else enjoy what they enjoy. And with that, I would like to say thank you for watching Graps TV and the Sicko Show. I'm your host, the Matty Man. I know you have choices and you chose to watch this. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And good night, America, wherever you are. Take care.